Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Zyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome into the LA Football Show, live at 5 here on 1090 The Mightier ESPN Radio, always on LAFB Network, the LA Football Network, our city, our network, and it was our Super Bowl. Welcome to the show. I'm Ryan Dyrud. I'm your host. Beautiful sunny day in SoCal. Some crazy weather we've had here in SoCal. You know, we had crazy heat all Super Bowl week. I think on Super Bowl it hit 90, which is insane in February. Even for us, that's hot. You know, around the country, they're getting snow and we were in 90s. And then the following week, so this current week, on Tuesday, I think, up here in Pasadena where I live, it didn't snow, but it hailed that looked like snow. If you haven't seen pictures, look up Rose Bowl hailstorm or Rose Bowl snow. It looked like a legit inch of snow covering the ground in Pasadena, California. And the next day it was like 75 again. And now it's beautiful and sunny yet again. Crazy weather. But thanks for joining the show. Got a good one for you today. I'm riding solo dolo myself. We were on Radio Row all week last week. It was such a blast. Met some amazing people. You know, our LAFB crew put in hours of work. We did 20 plus interviews. Just had so much fun. You could catch all of those interviews up on LAFBnetwork.com or go to the LAFB Network YouTube page. You know, we had Kyle Turley, former Ram, Adam Pac-Man Jones. We had famous chefs. We had, Dan Rue, who's like a Instagram influencer / dancer. We had Lecrae, hip hop artist, Darren Ravel. We had Brandon Lang, betting expert. I mean, we just had a huge, wide variety of guests talking life, football, food, obviously talking Super Bowl. So I know it's past, but a lot of good conversations on there that you can catch up on. And that is, again, at LAFBnetwork.com or go to our LAFB Network YouTube page. Today's show brought by our betting partners. Got a lot of great deals for you out there. If you live here in California in the Southland, you can use our friends at BetUS. I have a link in the description below. If you're on radio, go to LAFBnetwork.com. In the header, you'll see in the menu, you'll see a link that says LAFB betting offers. You can go there, but you get 125% bonus on your first deposit. If you're listening on podcast or YouTube and you live in a betting state, we have deals with BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, all getting you some great deals on your first deposit. So I know football's over now. Super Bowl came and went crazy. Our Rams won it here in Los Angeles. But, we still got the NBA, you still got NHL, you still got the NFL draft coming up. You can do futures bet on the NFL, all that good stuff. So head to our LAFB betting offers. Again, link is listed below if you're listening on podcast or YouTube, and go to LAFBnetwork.com. Go to the menu. If you're on radio, you can find it there and all of our great deals. So some good fun topics today to talk about on the show. We got the Rams parade happened on Wednesday. A lot of talk about that. I want to get into my thoughts about it. People were criticizing crowd numbers. I mean, people just criticize everything nowadays. If you've listened to my show long enough, I'm a glass half full guy. A no nonsense. It's ridiculous nowadays what people do. But anyway, I get into that a little bit. Talk about the Rams running it back. How are they set up for success moving forward? There's been retirement talks. How is their cap situation looking? All that fun stuff. The Chargers got to get back to our other LA teams now. The Super Bowl's over. Frank Smith, the former offensive line coach, run game coordinator for the Chargers, was just hired by the Dolphins as their new offensive coordinator. So who did the Chargers replace him with? What does that look like? And the UCLA Bruins finally hired a defensive coordinator. A name that I would say doesn't inspire a lot of excitement around Bruin Nation, but I'll try to change that. We'll get into it. So, all of that coming up on the LA Football Show on 1090 The Mightier ESPN Radio. Let's get into it. Rams Parade. All right, so it was on a Wednesday leading down Figueroa. The rally ended up in Exposition Park, which is right by the Coliseum where the Rams played when they first moved back here to Los Angeles. It basically runs right along USC's campus, USC Village there. You know, it's a cool area. USC obviously is a beautiful campus, historic. Exposition Park is very cool. You got the Natural Science Museum right there. Like I said, the LA Coliseum is like the backdrop. It's basically downtown LA. So I understand the reasoning for that. I would have chosen probably somewhere different if it were me, but I'm not in charge. But I want to get into quickly. I mean, I don't want to spend. I hate that I have to even still dedicate time. I mean, I don't have to. It's my show. I can do what I want. But I just hate these false narratives that continually get bounced around out there. Not just on Twitter, but there's like people reporting, whether it be in news, quote unquote, articles or actual journalists reporting it, usually on Twitter. But, you know, that's Twitter's kind of our news feed nowadays. And I think that, I've seen stuff out there, and this is why the American public in general, and I'm not going to get political, don't worry. I just don't want to, and that's not my style. But this is why the American public doesn't trust media anymore. Because you have actual journalists that have motives and narratives they want to push, and they find ways to push it. You know, we live in an age of video now. And it kind of, the thought was, well, now we have video. That's the evidence you need for everything. Like the video is, the proof is in the pudding, right? If you have the video of it, that's it. Case closed with everything. And so there's been multiple videos out there, some by people at the LA freaking Times. I'm not going to name names. If you know me, I'm not about burning bridges. I don't want to call people out. But it is disgruntling when you have employees of our newspaper, the Los Angeles Times, that cover our team, one of those being the Rams, and it's publicly known that some of these guys and gals are not. You don't have to be a fan. You're a journalist. You shouldn't be a fan. You should be subjective. But it's clear they are fans of another team that used to be here in Los Angeles, hasn't been for 20 plus years. And so they push these narratives about that fan base versus the teams that are actually here. And, you know, I get it. You can have personal opinions, but when you're a journalist for the main publication in this city, and you want to push something that is A, not totally true, and B, basically just you're seen as a hater of the teams here. Like, why are you employed covering this team? Subjectivity is crucial in journalism. Hating is not. Subjectivity and objectivity is key. Hating is not. And that's what a lot of these people do. It's crazy to me. Which is why I'm so proud of what we're doing at the LA Football Network. You know, we're going to cover your teams the way they should be covered. But anyway, so these videos come out showing the sparseness of the crowd at the parade. Now, a lot of them were posted. The parade was supposed to start this parade started at 11 from, you know, Jefferson and like Figueroa era, and then was coming all the way down for the rally that happened at noon right in front of the Coliseum. So a lot of these videos you could see on Twitter, they were posted at like, you know, 10:40, 10:45. So we're getting close to starting time. But it was pretty obvious. A lot of people talked about this. I'm not going to sit here and look at a sundial, but you could kind of, I mean, you live here, you know what the times kind of look by where the sun is, or just how the light is protruding through. And it sounds crazy to say, but hopefully that's making sense. 2, I was down there, so that's a different thing, but I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so these videos come out, and basically they're saying like, embarrassing crowd numbers, or it didn't even really say much. Just kind of like you could tell what they were alluding to. And they're walking around like in certain areas of USC campus showing a very, very few people. When in reality, when the parade was going, the numbers were pretty good. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I know there were some reports that the area of Exposition Park where it ends holds roughly 20 to 30,000 people, which was pretty dang full, which you can find, photo out there. Maybe I'll post it on here also at the end of it. But it's just, it's so annoying to me that this is continually a narrative. Like, what's the purpose of it? You look right now, if you go online, Rams parade, and you have USA Today, Fans Cited, all these so-called credible publications bashing Rams parade attendance, which none of those people were there. Most of them don't even live in LA. They're just taking these video evidence that were taken at like 8 or 9 in the morning, or on part of the parade route that was maybe the least busy, and then pushing that there was no one there, when that's just a flat out lie. So here's where I come in. I went down there to go to the parade, drove around for 45 minutes looking for parking. The place was packed. I mean, it was not like, I'm going to be real, it wasn't like the Chiefs parade or the Eagles parade or even like Lakers and Dodgers parade of the past. It wasn't that, but that wasn't the expectation. There were good numbers, good turnout for a Wednesday morning in Los Angeles for a team that's only been back here for 5 years. And for some reason, no one wants to talk about that LA still, to this day, has the strictest COVID protocols in the country. Now, I know we just had the Super Bowl here and we had crazy numbers, packed stadium. The NFL fan experience down at the convention center had like record numbers. But remember, a lot of these people were traveling, coming in for the big game, coming in to be here in the city for the Super Bowl. They're coming from different places that have less rules. Let's just say it how it is. And so they're going to kind of live here for this week the way that they've been living elsewhere. Cincinnati, everywhere has less strict rules here. People that live here in LA, Rams fans that live here, have been living with these, again, not going to get into it, but living with all these rules for now 2 years. And so that's kind of the mindset now is, do you want to go to a large crowd? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? It was also reported, I don't know where they would have done this because it was outdoor, but it was also reported that they were checking you had to be either fully vaccinated or had a negative test to attend the parade. I don't know how they checked that for an outdoor free venue, but that was reported that was true. I didn't get checked or anything when I was down there, but so all these factors come in. You can't compare it to the Eagles parade, the Chiefs parade, that wasn't happening during a still pandemic, whatever you want to talk about the pandemic. In LA, it still is a pandemic because of the rules we have. I mean, the mask mandate was lifted in California, not in LA. They're keeping that going. Whole different story. B, Chiefs, Eagles, Bear, all these are blue blood football cities that their teams have been there for 50 plus years, generations and generations of fans finally see their team win after years of just bad football play and losing and this. Of course, the turnout's going to be huge. The Rams left LA. Georgia, the old owner, scorned LA. When the Rams won the Super Bowl in St. Louis, the greatest show on turf, she literally belittled LA, scorned them. I know Charger fans out there hate or old Charger, I should say, San Diego Charger fans hate the Spanoses and the Chargers organization, the way they moved. But to my knowledge, Dean and AJ Spanos have never come out and publicly like scorned San Diego. Georgia did that to the city of Los Angeles. And so when they moved back 20 years later, now with new ownership and Stan Kroenke, you're literally starting from zero almost. Yeah, there were some diehards that stayed with the team in St. Louis, but you're almost starting from zero, not 50 years of generational fans. So I've said it a million times. The fan base is growing. It's on the right track. Winning the Super Bowl is going to help. The numbers at the parade were fine. Totally fine. I 100% believe that for everything going on in the city, for how long the team's been here, for the new generation of fan bases, for the short notice. I mean, the parade was on. I know usually the parades are just a few days after, but on a Wednesday from the location. I mean, the USC Village is literally has been on lockdown for 2 years. You can't get into USC without a purpose or for sure without a vaccine card. The parade road's going basically right through there. So, not the easiest access. I sound like I'm making excuses, but I feel like I'm taking crazy pills with the kind of scrutiny that this thing got, especially when you see the truth. I was down there. It was good numbers. There was a lot of people, not just at the parade, but just in the city in general on Wednesday. We went to the zoo after, took my daughter there. Rams gear everywhere. Rams jerseys in downtown LA. People just cruising around. Oh, you were at the parade. You're at the parade. How was it? It's a good time in this city. It's a good time to be a Rams fan. Rams fans should be proud of the growth that they've seen as a fan base. They should be proud, obviously, of this team for winning the Super Bowl the way they did. And yeah, I just think there's a lot of good things to be excited about. Before quickly I get into the future of this Ram team, got to talk to you about our new friends at NordVPN. What's more important than peace of mind? I'd say probably nothing. And that's what NordVPN is here for, to give you peace of mind while you are online. And with all the threats that you face today on the internet, it's more important than ever to be sure that you have the best VPN you can get. NordVPN is the world's best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, most servers, and next-gen encryption to make sure that everything you do online stays secure. Plus, you can use NordVPN on all your computers and devices, no matter the operating system. With NordVPN's unlimited bandwidth, you never have to worry about a slow connection either, and plans start at under $4 a month. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to Nord, that's N-O-R-D as in dog, VPN.com/believe, or use the code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, that's B-L-E-A-V, to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus one additional month for free. It's also risk-free with the Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All right. So before we go to break here, I wanted to quickly talk. I'll probably finish up on the other side of the break also, but talk about this Rams future and why I think they are built for success for the future. This was not a one-and-done team. A lot of people talk about the all-in year. It worked great, but then there's question marks that, can this be sustainable? And for those out there that don't know or don't follow the Rams closely or only listen to kind of the national media talk about them, the Rams have been in this kind of all-in mode ever since Sean McVay got here. I mean, it's not like this year was so different. What made it different is they went all in on the quarterback, and they traded Goff, who they had just, extended with the big contracts. That's what kind of pushed that new thought process, was because they added Matthew Stafford, gave away 2 first-round picks and a third, plus Goff, that they're all in this year. But they went all in. They got to keep Talib. They got Ndamukong Suh. They traded for Jalen Ramsey, 2 years ago. That was 2 first-round picks. Marcus Peters, they traded a first round. Brandon Cooks, they traded a first-round pick for. So they've been doing this since McVay's been here. It's not like this year is any different. They've been all in every year for the past 4-5 years. This year's just different because of the quarterback position. But the way they've built things up, and for those that don't know, the Rams are 4th in homegrown players and top 5 in age per player. They've done a phenomenal job at drafting in the mid rounds to late rounds and developing those players into top tier talent. But just look at the last drive of the game. Everyone talks about the star-studded Rams team, which they are. The last drive to win the Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford had Cooper Kupp, star, but drafted by the Rams, homegrown. Ben Skowronek, a rookie who dropped and forced an interception. Bryson Hopkins, drafted last year, hasn't played at all this year. And Van Jefferson, drafted last year. All homegrown drafted players, and Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl on that drive. So they're doing something right besides just training. They're still developing players. A lot more on that at the bottom of the hour. Let's get back to it after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Thank you for making us part of your day, a part of your drive on the mightier 1090 ESPN radio, always on the LA Football Network. Left off talking about this Rams future and why I think this was not a team built for a one and done type season. I think they're built for success for the future. I'm going to get back to that. We're going to talk a little Chargers coaching shuffling, and UCLA hired a defensive coordinator finally. So we're going to get to that before the end of the show. But first, another one of our sponsors. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Check them out at betterhelp.com/LA football. Now, the best way to think about therapy, because I know it's a weird thing to think about, but use a bunch of analogies. So we get our cars tuned up to prevent bigger issues down the road, get annual checkups, go to the gym to maintain physical wellness, prevent injury, disease. For some of you people, you have your kids do chores regularly to avoid a giant mess in the house. Just there's annual things that you do to maintain things to make life better. Well, going to therapy is kind of the same thing. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Why invest in everything else, but not your mind? Podcast sponsored by BetterHelp, and Believe in LA Football listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/LA football. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/LA football. Make sure to check them out. All right. So as I was saying before I went to break, this Rams team has a lot more homegrown talent than a lot of people knew anyway. The national narrative is one and done or all in this year. I already talked about kind of how they've had that mantra since McVay got here. But they've also done a great job, drafting in the middle to late rounds, developing, that's a hats off to Sean McVay and this coaching staff, who I'll also end with some coaching changes on the Rams staff a little bit, but they have solid talent all over. The other piece why I think this is built is all their key players are locked in. I mean, Stafford's still got another year in his deal. They're going to extend him this offseason, I would assume, because A, they want to lock him in, just won a Super Bowl with him. That we know how important the relationship with him and McVay is, which I'll get to more in a second. But B, by extending him, they can now sprinkle that money out from this year, which frees up more cap space for him, which has been kind of the magic that Tony Pastors has been able to do in his time working with Les Snead in the front office. So that's going to get done. Cooper Kupp's locked in. Robert Woods locked in. Aaron Donald, and this is a big one, is locked in for 3 more years. Now, obviously, there's the dark cloud of will he retire? It keeps getting rumored, and, we saw the joy at the parade and the yelling of run it back, but some things to note here. Donald was fairly clear, at least in his rhetoric at the parade, to run it back with this current team. Meaning maybe if they aren't able to retain Von Miller and OBJ, maybe he would retire. Now, I personally think when he sits down, thinks about it more, takes some time off, spends time with his family and his kids, he's got 3 years left on the deal worth about $60 million. I think he at least finishes that contract. The guy's already made a ton of money when you've made that much money, how much more different is your life with more of it? Like he's made enough money to retire and never work again in his life, but he'll still have endorsement deals for many, many years. He can probably be in the booth if he wants to, or do something else. But I think he'll finish out that contract. I also think that the Rams are going to do a very conscious job of bringing back Von Miller and OBJ. I mentioned all their key players that are already locked in. Their cap space, right now, sits, I think, at like $6 million. Andrew Whitworth is another key question mark here. If he retires, that frees up about $14 million. If he plays the one more year, which who knows? I mean, we'll try to get him on the show again. Had him on last offseason, kind of get his thoughts, see if we can poke him a little bit. He's certainly good enough to keep playing, but it seems fitting for him to walk off in the sunset. 40 years old, ending with a Super Bowl. But we'll see. Now, if he does walk or does retire, Joe Noteboom, who played in his stead and has, grown up with his Rams, drafted by them, is also a free agent. So they're going to need to allocate money to him if they want him to be the left tackle of the future. But with extensions, there was a graphic somewhere I saw that with restructuring, they could essentially end up freeing up in the like 40 to 50 million range, which is plenty of money then to bring back Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr., which I know they both certainly want to come back, but they're going to be Von Miller proved that he's still worth a high price. So we'll see what kind of discount he would take to stay. I can't see Von, honestly. I'm not just saying this as a homer. Von is either going to re-sign with the Rams or go back to Denver and re-sign with the Broncos. He's said many times his love for Denver. He still has a home there. He has a kid there now. His love for the Broncos organization. His first Super Bowl was there. He even said during this last week that he's a Bronco for life. He loves the Rams, but right now he's just employed by them. Didn't mean anything disrespectful by that. Just saying that that's his love for the Broncos. So to me, he's either going to be a Ram or a Bronco. And I know winning with the Rams certainly helps. And like I said, with this team staying intact, they can certainly run it back. Sean McVay, also there was the speculation that he could retire. He pretty emphatically was saying, run it back, run it back. His fiance on Instagram posted, no, he is not retiring. I think Sean McVay retires when Matthew Stafford retires. I kind of foresee that. I see Aaron Donald finishing it out his contract. Stafford's 34 now. Maybe he gets a 4 to 5 year deal that will ride him out to his 40. And I think McVay will coach there. That puts McVay at 42. By then, maybe he has 2 kids that are, 2 and 3 years old. Hopefully they've won 2 or 3 more championships, and then he can retire as one of the greatest coaches of all time, which I already in 5 years thinks he's in that conversation. But if he coaches another 5 years, brings 2 more championships to LA, it's a very real talk about where he ranks in the top 5 of all time. So that's my belief, is that McVay coaches till Stafford retires. Donald plays the rest of his 3 years. The Rams are able to bring back OBJ and Von Miller, depending on the price, and the rest of their core is set. Now, you look at the NFC landscape, Russell Wilson potentially on the move. I think it's more real than everyone's talking about Aaron Rodgers. I think Russell Wilson moving out of Seattle is very real. I honestly think he might have a better chance going to Denver than Aaron Rodgers does. But Aaron Rodgers also might be on the move. Now, there's now rumors that he may have his sights set for San Francisco, which is a bummer, coming to the Rams division. But let's say not. Let's say Russ moves and Rodgers moves out of the NFC. Now you have, what, Kyler Murray? And even he's unhappy in Arizona? I mean, the NFC is for the taking for the Rams. The Rams are clearly the best team because they're really, outside of Von Miller and OBJ, they don't have any true key losses coming off the books this year. Aside from Andrew Whitworth. Well, Andrew Whitworth's under contract still, so we'll see what happens with that. This team is set for the next 3 to 5 years, which is exactly in line with why I think McVay plays till Stafford retires. Donald at least finishes out his contract because they won't be in a rebuild. They'll be chasing championships for the next 3 to 5 years. Team is set. Now, last thing I'll wrap up on with the Rams is like every year, they lose coaches, which is another testament to Sean McVay and his greatness as an NFL coach. Kevin O'Connell, offensive coordinator, now has become the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He has interviewed Thomas Brown, who is the Rams running back and assistant head coach, for his offensive coordinator position. So there's potential he loses him. Coach Evero, who's the secondary and pass game coordinator, is now the defensive coordinator for the Broncos. So you've already lost 2, potentially 3 key coaches, just like last year. Lost Brandon Staley, lost Joe Barry, lost Aubrey Pleasant. It's just Aaron Cromer ended up leaving, and they had to bring down Kevin Carberry from Stanford. So the amount of turnover with this coaching staff and the ability for them to never miss a beat is amazing. So super pumped for those coaches getting their opportunity. I hope Thomas Brown stays and becomes the new OC. He's going to be a head coach soon in this league as well. The reason why he would leave, I assume, would have to do with, so Kevin O'Connell being the offensive coordinator for the Rams never called plays. It was Sean McVay. So he obviously is going to want that opportunity now as the head coach to call plays. However, never doing it, you want to bring someone in that is very cognizant of what your abilities are, very cognizant of your scheme. And Thomas Brown is that. Basically coaching alongside with Kevin O'Connell in a similar role, being the assistant head coach and the running backs coach. So he wants to bring someone in that he can call the plays, but the guy beneath him as the OC knows all the ins and outs. And you bring someone else in from a different organization, that just steepens the learning curve to what he already has as a challenge, being a first-time head coach and a first-time play caller. So Thomas Brown, I think, will have a bigger role in Minnesota than he would had he stayed, or nothing's been decided yet, but if he stays here in the same position as OC, because he'll be an OC somewhere. Thomas Brown will be an OC in this cycle, whether it's with the Rams or with the Vikings. So the Rams obviously, quote unquote, interview him. I don't know how much the interview would need to be, knowing who he is. So I hope he decides to stay and wants to grow, and maybe with the McVay, if he leaves in a few years, he can be like, hey, the coach in waiting, if you will. But I think he'll have a bigger role in Minnesota, which is probably why that is where he'll end up. So McVay has cast his net fairly far and, interviewed Liam Cohen, who has history with the Rams, really bright young offensive mind, came up in the system. Last year was with Kentucky as their offensive coordinator. So if Thomas Brown goes to Minnesota, I think he's the top guy. I think he'll be back in LA as the OC, and he's a really, really good young mind, and I think he'd be a great fit, and he'll probably be a head coach also soon here. They also have requested or already completed an interview with Falcons quarterback coach Charles London, and just today, LSU passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach Cortez Hankett, who's in that role that Joe Brady was in a few years ago in their championship role. So, casting the net wide out there. Hope it's Thomas Brown. Think it's Liam Cohen. That's who I think. So, always crazy turnover with this Rams team, but Sean McVay's proven that doesn't seem to matter. Doesn't seem to matter. And they just keep on chugging away. Now, we'll see who they move up with Coach Evero, or in his spot, that secondary coach, who is a huge role also, pass game coordinator. So that's going to be a big shoes to fill. Raheem Morris, luckily, is staying. Didn't see him get plucked as a head coach, so they still have at least the key cog in that piece. And everyone out there that was rudely calling for Raheem Morris's head all year, you owe that man an apology. Rams defense gave up 0 touchdowns against the Niners and Bengals in the second half of each of those respective games. Well played. Raheem Morris deserves some credit. Sticking with coaching, though, let's move over to the Chargers a little bit. Los Angeles Chargers lost their O-line coach and run game coordinator, Frank Smith. We had him on the show last offseason. Awesome dude. Coach with Frosty, my longtime co-host Frosty spoke so highly about him as a coach. And Frosty, when he played, I guess technically under him in Oakland, Frosty's a defensive end, as if you don't know. And Frank Smith was a tight end coach there. And he loved him. That just shows the kind of impact as a coach when a position coach on the other side of the ball is still able to bring value to someone else on the other side of the ball. So Frosty spoke so highly, and we had him on the show. Great coach. I think the proof was in the pudding, right? I mean, look at the Chargers offensive line from last year to this year. Obviously, you add body. I mean, the players are who do it. You know, you add Adoya Bushi. I know he didn't finish the year, but started off great. You add Corey Linsley, which may have been the best free agent signing of the season, of the entire NFL. You draft Rashawn Slater. You add Matt Filer in free agency, also great signing. But Frank Smith was able to coach those guys up. If you forget, Rashawn Slater, drafted 13th. A lot of hype. He didn't play his last year in college for Northwestern. Hadn't played football in a year. You got to have some coaching there to get you ready to rock and roll. And you bring in all those new players. You literally have an entire new offensive line. Because Brian Balaga, who was the incumbent, didn't play it down in the regular season. Ended up being Storm Norton. So that's another thing. You have an XFL player as your starting right tackle. Had his struggles, but I thought played fairly well for the expectations for the talent there. And Frank Smith was the coach behind that, the architect behind what that offensive line was able to accomplish, going from dead last in the NFL to a top 10 unit. So Frank Smith, sucks to lose him, but rightfully so, goes to Miami to become their offensive coordinator. Big promotion for him. Again, probably won't call plays. I assume McDaniel there is, he is coming from the Shanahan system, who he didn't call plays. So another head coach with no play calling experience, but obviously has a great offensive mind. So he's going to call plays, but Frank Smith's going to have a very integral role in that. Plus, it's still a promotion from O-line coach to OC. So the Chargers, then they go out and they hire Brandon Nugent from the Saints. Same position, offensive line coach there. Has familiarity with Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator, who was the quarterback coach for the Saints previously. He joined the Saints in 2015. Before that, he was the offensive quality control coach with the Bears in 2013 and 2014. So, I think it's a fine hire. It's going to be tough losing a guy like Smith, but you're not losing anything in terms of schematically, right? Because Frank Smith was with the Raiders before, but Frank Smith spent time in New Orleans as well with Joe Lombardi. So there was that familiarity when they brought him in with Joe Lombardi. And now you kind of do the same thing by bringing in Brandon Nugent. You get that familiarity. You can keep the schemes. You're not overhauling the offensive identity, the offensive line identity. So we'll see how he is just actually coaching up these guys, but at least the familiarity stays intact. And there's not any crazy changes that come along with that. So that's the latest update with the Chargers. Have plenty of stuff all offseason for you. We got plenty of draft stuff coming up for agency, so stay tuned on that. Before we finish the show with some UCLA news, TickPick, one of our ticket partners, 0 fees at TickPick. So I know football's over, basketball, hockey, baseball, if they play, lockout going on, we'll see what happens, but concerts, going to concerts again, where we can finally go out to concerts, Hollywood Bowl, the Griffith Park, the Greek, all these great venues we can go to. TickPick, 0 fees when you buy tickets there. Can't beat it. You got to use my link though, tickpick.com/LAFB. All right, UCLA Bruins and Chip Kelly finally hire a defensive coordinator. Jerry Azzinaro resigned back in January. I don't think the team made it official, but he resigned, reported, and they now finally add a defensive coordinator, Bill McGovern. Definitely not a hire, I think, that I said it in the beginning of the show, inspires a ton of excitement. And that's no disrespect to him, but it's a Chip Kelly guy. Like Chip Kelly went back to his wheelhouse, and it's almost like he hired a very similar guy to Jerry Azzinaro. Like we were hoping for a Jimmy Lake hire, someone out of the box that has great experience, has produced NFL talent, could come here and just take over the defense. Because if this team gets a top 50 defense, this is a good football team. this UCLA Bruins squad. You're 8 wins last year. You get a top 50 defense. You're easily looking at 9 to 10 wins, especially with the easy schedule they start with. They play a couple of HBCU schools to start before they even get to conference play. So it's some easy games to really start off 3-0, and then they start off with some lackluster Pac-12 teams that they can really pump this thing to 4-5-0 if they get the defensive play that they need. But they just, if you didn't hear, Aguda, star linebacker, entering the transfer portal. Reportedly wants to go somewhere where he can get better NIL deals. Don't know how true that is. I think it's probably more, football-wise. I know DTR came out, and there was a report that said that. DTR said, you don't know this guy's love for football. Don't, make things up based on something you don't know anything about. So, but either way, Mitchell Aguda transferring from UCLA, once a Bruin, always a Bruin. Love what he did coming from a JUCO here. Was just so fun to watch. But you lose a guy like that, and then you bring in a defensive coordinator that doesn't inspire really anything. It's just he coached under Chip Kelly when Kelly was in Philadelphia. Let's just look at his resume real quick, though. 40 years of college and NFL experience. So, great experience there. He was last year with the Bears as their linebacking coach. He spent the last decade in the NFL. Before that, he was with Boston College for 13 years. But with the Bears last year, the Bears defense rated 3rd in passing defense, 4th in sacks, 6th in total defense. And Roquan Smith, their top linebacker, who was under his tutelage, finished 5th in tackles. So some good numbers there. I know he wasn't the DC, but linebacker coach, they have a lot of say there. We saw Brandon Staley go from linebacker coach to DC in the NFL to head coach in a 3-year time. So I don't think he's a bad coach. It's just, when you're hoping for that kind of star power that gets people excited about UCLA football, which I think finally was back this past season. And then I've said so many times in this show, the right thing to do was bringing Chip Kelly back. You didn't want to set the program back by starting over or bringing someone else in. It's going to kind of reset things. You want to keep on this path, this trajectory that they had built. And then the hope was to bring in a defensive coordinator that could just totally solidify that option. And you bring in an old guy from the circle. Basically what Jerry Azzinaro was. And my buddy Jamal does the Draft is in Session podcast here on the LA Football Network. I think said it best. And I'll end with this. People were out there saying, you basically just hired Jerry Azzinaro 2.0. Jamal worked in tech for many years. He said, in the tech industry, 2.0 means like an upgrade. You're taking a product and then you're tweaking it to make it better. Bill McGovern's more like Jerry Azzinaro 0.5. Essentially the same thing. Now, I think it's a little better than that. At least it's some new blood in there with UCLA's regards. Obviously, like I said, comes from that Chip Kelly coaching circle. But I think there's something else, hopefully, that we'll see. And I think, what we saw with him do with the Bears, again, not the DC, the LB coach, but still involved in that. Glass half full guy. Got to hope for the best. But they got to turn. The defense can't get much worse. That's the one benefit, right? Can't get much worse. So let's hope to see it improve. But that's all the time I have. This is the LA Football Show. Hit me up on Twitter, Ryan Dyberd, LAFB. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? If you just want to talk ball with me, make sure to check out LAFBnetwork.com, LAFB Network on YouTube. Subscribe to the show wherever you watch or listen. We are everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks for tuning in to 1090 The Mightier ESPN Radio. Really appreciate you all out there. Have a fantastic week. We'll be back next week. And got lots of stuff to take of for this offseason. Season doesn't end for the LA Football Show. We got you covered year-round 365. Appreciate you all. I'm Ryan Dyberd. Peace.